Hey, how's it going? I'm gonna try to do another one of these. Okay, so, hi. We've got a fascinating person to talk about today, and I'm going to give you an update on the Bramble situation, and we're gonna do a couple other things. First, I wanted to talk to you about what you saw last time. The beginning of the last video, you saw a very weird, it was like a poster with a writing cycle on it. It was given to me by my son. I guess, when the when the class was ending one year, at his school, I think it was his second year of school when he was a second grader. That would be third year. Anyway, when he was a second grader, the last day of school, the teacher was clearing everything out, and she was asking kids if they wanted posters that she had made for teaching the year before. And one of them was on the writing process, and my son, knowing that I'm a writer, decided that he would bring it home so that I would know how to write a book. At this point, I had written, I think, 10 of them. But when your child wants to help you with something, it's always a good idea just to let them. So we ended up with the writing process in the office. So goes all the way around from get an idea to publish. And he was very proud of it, that he brought it to me. And I'm very proud that he gave it to me. So I keep it in my office. It'll always be in my office. When I get a bigger office, I'll probably frame it. And yeah, it shows to me my child's dedication and acceptance of my work. So that's a piece that's very important to me. I'm going to show you a picture of my desk right now. Okay, a couple videos back, I think, I introduced this character. I called him the Praying Buddha. In fact, the character is called the Weeping Buddha. It still sits with the same legend. Again, I don't know if it's true or not. About the warrior Buddha killing his son and going peaceful. I don't know if that's true. It's a very cool statue, and it gives me something to think about whenever I'm considering going to war, which in my life is oddly often. We're going to talk about two things coming on my desk right now, and then I'm going to tell you about the vest, because you've seen it in all the videos. I am sure you're curious about the vest. So, we're going to start with this guy right here. I bought a good one. They were out, they were big a couple years ago. And when I decided I needed one for my office, I actually bought two. One is sitting on a table over there with a bunch of other things that my guests can just play with. This one is a solid stainless steel fidget spinner. And it's pretty cool. The arms can all be taken off. They can all be screwed off, so you can make different kinds of fidget spinners. This thing will spin for about 5 minutes. It's very cool, and it was one of the more pricier of the group. I get it out every now and then when I'm feeling really anxious and I need to calm myself down, and this helps me do it. The other thing I want to talk about is the last and final coaster. It is made to look like a Persian rug. It's got rubber on the back. I actually stole this one. There is a woman in my autobiography. I call her Marigold. She has a problem, and it is coasters. She has a collection of coasters. She keeps buying more. More and more they start piling up. And she had just bought these. There are 4 of them. 4 is a set. 4 is, you're supposed to have 4. But I convinced her to give me one. And it is very dear to me. And I have it as one of the 3 in my office. I told her I would give her one of mine. So I'm going to bring one of the wooden coasters with the arcs of electricity cutting into them that we saw in an earlier video. I'm going to bring that and give it to her one day. But for now, I have Marigold's coaster on my desk. It's the one I use the most. It helps me think of her, and that helps me calm down. She's always been a force for good, a powerful force for good in my life. And so whenever I am anxious, I see the coaster and I think of Marigold. Okay, let's talk about the vest. I'm a vest guy. I love vests. I always have. I think they're really cool. I have one that I wear almost everywhere. Every time I am not wearing it, I am wishing that I have. This one is a special vest, though. Before the pandemic, me and my wife, we went to Memphis and spent a weekend on Beale Street. Beale Street is the home of the blues. And we got to listen to a lot of fantastic blues there. And it's very famous for the blues. And there's a lot of different things that you can see. There's a lot of different blues bars, a lot of modern blues is being played. It's fantastic. We went to a place and I got a po' boy sandwich, and we listened to this blues band play. It was amazing. Could have stayed there all night. It's fantastic. Anyway, if you go to Beale Street and you go to the Hard Rock Cafe that's on Beale Street, it's connected to a building. And that building used to be a factory that they made clothes for famous rock stars, blues players, rhythm and blues. A musician that wanted a specific outfit could get it from there. So we walked over there, we saw a lot of really wild stuff. Like crazy, like wild blues, reds, yellows, paisleys, all this kind of stuff. On polyester suit coats and different shirts and different pants and bell bottoms, and we saw a lot of really crazy stuff. And one of the things we saw was this. This is actually a vest that was first made for Elvis Presley. And the guy told me that, and I was like, yeah, right. So I didn't buy it. We walked away. I thought about it, and finally we did come back and we did buy it. And I didn't care if it was true. I'm not a huge Elvis fan. I've always respected Elvis. I didn't care if it was true. I just liked the vest. So he's ringing me up, and I look up at the far wall, and there's a picture of a bunch of musicians. It's a black and white actual photograph of a bunch of musicians. And one of them is Elvis, and he's wearing this vest. Sitting on the counter was another picture of other musicians. wearing other things, and again, Elvis is wearing this vest. So I decided that this would be the vest that I wear for this season of Voices from an Unreal World. Every season I'm going to wear a different vest. But my Beale Street vest is for season 1. I call it my Beale Street vest because that's what Elvis called his. Anyway, so that's the thing. Okay, so the person we're going to talk about today has had an immense impact on my life. She's one of my best friends, one of the writers that I respect the most. She's one of the writers everyone respects the most. In my autobiography, I call her the Druid. The Druid loves the written word. She reads constantly, listens to audiobooks constantly. She loves the written word. She's written a number of things. She's written 2 novels. She's got a novella out. She's working on another novella. At the same time, she's writing 2 other novels. She's busy all the time. She's also an editor. She's editing my autobiography. She's already done the first volume. She's working on the second volume. She's got it about halfway done. And she's editing my autobiography. I truly wouldn't trust anybody else with my story. She edits for indie writers and traditional writers at the same time. She's not, as long as you're a decent writer and you're willing to learn and you're willing to work and you don't mind getting smacked around every now and then and built up every now and then go to this person, go to the Druid. She's got very reasonable rates and she's just fantastic at what she does. There's a lot of people that swear by her. I'm one of those people. She doesn't do any of my fantasy work. I've got a guy. The reason he's my guy is because he's read all of it and he's in on the whole thing. And if I were to get the Druid to start working on my fantasy work, she'd have to dedicate herself to reading 15 books so that she could keep up, catch up, and involve herself in all the moving pieces. And I just can't ask her to do that. Because some of those books are not small books. This is the kind of... she loves literature. And my belief is that when she was born, she refused to leave the womb until she had handed her book out to the doctor, the one she was reading. She handed her book out, and she says, "Here, hold this." And then she allowed herself to be born. And then when she got to the nursery, she was pissed that they hadn't saved her spot in her book. That's the kind of love for literature that we're talking about. She was reading before she could read. Okay, there is a piece that I'm going to read about her. Then we're going to talk about it for a little while. And we're going to go from there. Okay. So let me find the piece and we'll get to it. Okay. So I pulled it up. This is the chapter from my autobiography that is about this person. It's called The Druid. The Druid walks the world cloaked in a robe of pain. Her body is constantly racked with agony, and she wears it every minute of her life. She cannot disrobe when she sleeps, and she slumbers in pain. She cannot disrobe as she parents and smiles through the searing of her body. She is a bastion of strength in a world that fights to break her. but no one can break the Druid. And as the self-published fantasy world watches in awe, she creates beauty everywhere she goes, and with everything she does. With a staff of thorns in her grip, she treads softly through her mystical garden. It is the home to plants no one has heard of, holds vegetables that bear odd colors and exotic flavors. Her orchard is a coffee and a lemon, and her tomatoes come in masses the size of a man's heart and carry tastes that cannot be found in other lands but her own. All flora is known to her and mastered. All foods and fruits come to her beckon from the ground as she walks. And she walks the forest of her imagination. The trees whisper of characters, the ground sings the song of plots, and the wind and the rain flows the prose she writes. The Druid is a creature of magic and tribulation, and all speak her name in reverence and awe. All turn to her for wisdom. In her power and her grace, she is generous. In her ease, she settles the fears of other writers. She is an inspiration for all, a bar set high for others to reach. The Druid came to me in the time of my greatest need, and her gentle hand and ferocious mind took chaos from Teardrop Road and Normal Street, when I was lost in her wilds and horrified by their truths. The Druid had a health crisis, and her review blog had promised to read Legends of the Exiles. A kind word from her and the book would be made. Her reach is wide, and her opinion powerful, and I was ecstatic when I found out she was interested in my work. She had heard rumor of my books and was ready to weigh its merit. I was confident she'd love the piece. I waited for her judgment with bated breath, but her health crisis racked her mind so much with fear and impending doom that she could not read critically. She was searching for a book she would not have to review, just to keep her mind off of her pain, her fear, and her possible doom. I saw her in need, and I told her to read Exiles, and not to review it. Take what strength she could for it, for I believed its powerful female characters might see her through. She wrote one update while she was reading. She said, "Jesse Teller is blowing my mind." This came in a time of darkness for me, when doubt was having its way with hope, and I was near to breaking. She had saved me while in her pain with a kind sentiment of adoration. I began to watch her, talk to her, and from a distance I waited until I could enter her life and be her friend. When Teardrop was done and I was about to dive into the intensity of Normal Street, I was looking for an editor. I did not know if Teardrop was destined for traditional publishing or self-publishing. I still don't know. I've sent it to agents. I sent it to about 20 agents, and only one has rejected it, but it's been a very long time, so I don't know how that's going. But I did not know if Teardrop was destined for traditional publishing or self-publishing, but I knew if I did decide to submit the book to agents and publishers, I wanted to have a clean manuscript as possible. The Druid's rates are not cheap, but I had been sent to her by the judge, and by this time I trusted that woman. My first call was to the judge. She was an editor. I knew her. She was good, very good. She was a friend. She had read parts of the story in a writer's group we'd shared, and I trusted her. When I called on her, she said, "You don't want me on this project. You're looking for the Druid. See if she'll look at it. See if she wants to work on this. She is perfect for you. She's what you need." When I reached out, she offered to edit the first 10 pages for free to display her work and to see if we would be a good fit. I told her I didn't need to see a sample of her work. I just wanted her to see what she was getting into. I sent her the chapters In View of the Dead and The Coming of Shadow, My First Kiss in a Haunted Motel, and The Moment of Discovery of My Altars. I have DID, dissociative identity disorder. It's often called multiple personality disorder. So The Coming of Shadow is the story of the moment when I discovered that. In View of the Dead is the story of my first kiss, and there were ghosts all around me that I was seeing while I was having my first kiss. Both of those are have been published as blogs, so I'll link them. But if you read them, those were the two things that I had sent to to the Druid in the beginning. I sent them to her to let her know what she was getting into. You're throwing her in the deep end right away, Becca said. I need her to see what she's getting into. I need her to see that this is not a joke. I will judge her interest by her reaction. I want her to want this book. It was a day of interminable waiting before she got back to me. I want this project. This is intense. I want in. We can negotiate price. I can be flexible. I can meet any deadline you want me to. This is a thing I want to be a part of. I would not negotiate price. I believe that everyone in the writing industry deserves to be paid every cent of their rate. So I sent her the document and I waited. Not long after she had it, she came to me with a personal, heartbreaking story of her past. She needed a confessor. She needed a friend. She was haunted by a moment in time, and she needed to talk to a person who had known pain. She spoke, and through her words, our story really began. As the project progressed, Smeared Lord of Ire reached out to her. That's one of my altars. She recognized him instantly. She spoke to him with respect and courtesy, and he asked her what she thought of the tale of his life. She was awed by it, and spoke with respect to him, as he told her of things he had only told Becca, and he prepared her for what was coming in the book. A few moments later, she heard the voice of Shadow. He needed to talk to this chick who had a hold of his story and let her know a few things. She laughed, thought his obscenity was hilarious, and though he came to fight, her love for him was too great to fight back. See, as she walks the world of this series with thorn staff in hand, she embraces every altar talked about. She becomes friends with them, and before she meets them, she cries for them as the story of their burning hits her, and she loves them before she talks to them. Servants, another one of my altars, used to have a garden. It was huge, and he cared for it for months. It was his main chore. He would kneel and pick weeds as he sang Bonnie Tyler to his plants. He saved what money he could to buy seeds, and in his joy he had planted lettuce. Lettuce is not common in backyard gardens, and though his plant was small, he pictured the bologna and cheese sandwich he would make with it, and the taste of his lettuce he had cared for so well and so diligently. But he took a trip to Waynesville, that was when I was living in Milwaukee, with Tigress and Lioness, and while he was gone, his parents did not care for his garden. They mowed over it. When he came home, everything he loved was gone. His work, his love, his life had been destroyed, and again, the servant had nothing. He spoke to the Druid about it and wept, said he wasn't a gardener anymore. But he had been at one time. He used to have dirt under his fingernails, and he used to sing. She comforted him when he cried, and her soft words healed him a bit. You'll always be a gardener. You're one of us. We'll be for life, whether you have a plant or not. They talked about his dream of owning and caring for a bonsai tree one day, then exchanged internet pictures and talked about how beautiful they were. She told him that a plant was in his future, and Servant was healed a little bit. In her work, she is daring. Seraphina's Lament breaks hearts around the world. It is hailed as a dark and twisted, gorgeous piece of fiction that blows the mind of everyone who reads it and inspires those readers. Of Honey and Wildfires came out to a roaring audience. One reader sat at her tablet in her lab at 11:55, staring in wait as the pre-order kicked in. She read it immediately, all the way through the night, and in the morning wrote a review of such beauty and devotion that it made the Druid, and Smear, cry. The love of her readers is mythic. She's healed family rifts with her work. She's blown audiences away with her breathtaking prose, and through it all, she hurts. Through it all, she weeds the flaws out of her clients' manuscripts, and she writes her next masterpiece. The Druid is a writer of miracles, of heartache and pain. She crosses borders and pushes boundaries. Everyone in the community knows her name, and everyone stands with awe and watches as she shows us how to do our jobs with humility and the magic she's known for. On her desk right now is Hollow Man, the first book of Normal Street. She finished it. It's amazing. Her edits on it were amazing. It will make her cry. It will infuriate her. And she will weed out its Mars and build up its strength. The Druid is of magic and mists. The Druid is my friend. The Druid is my secret weapon. Okay. So, that was my reading of the chapter of the Druid. It went remarkably well. Very little mess-ups. Very little, stumbling around. I think that means that the right altar was out and read the piece. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll get into all of that stuff later. And I'll bust out full crazy later. But for now, I'll come back in a minute and we'll talk a little more about the Druid. Okay, the Druid. So her name's actually Sarah Chorn. She came out with a couple books now. Becca's read both of them, and Sarah blows Becca away. This is Seraphina's Lament. She sent it to me. Sarah sent it to me. I'm gonna put the cover up because you can't see it very well in this lighting and all that kind of stuff. I can give you this one preview. She wrote this book, and when she wrote the inscription for it, she said, "Please refrain from eating people." So that's what we know about Seraphina's Lament. She thought that when I read the book, it might turn me into a cannibal. What I know about this book is that it's part of a very large world. And Sarah is currently working on the second book in the series. She had trouble coming back to this. Came out a while ago, and somebody came in that was supposed to be her friend and very cheerfully blasted it. Everything about it. Told her to change some of the names. Just everything they could do to blast it. But with hope that if she would only listen to them, the two of them could turn it into a great book. Well, this person has done this a couple of times in a couple of places to a couple of my friends. All women, all aggressively attacked and basically told by this person that they're not a good writer. I've had to sit and listen and talk to at least 4 of the people that this person, of the women that this person has told this to. And I talk them through it. I tell them otherwise. But it's not my place to step in. It's not my place to step in and tell this guy that's doing this to writers that are better than him. It's not my place to step in and say, "Shut your pie hole." Man, I wanted to use a worse word than that. I wanted to use a worse word than that. It's not my place because powerful women can defend themselves. Sarah basically just needed to get pissed. And she recently put out a blog post that tells her story. It leaves this person's name out. The person that attacked her, it leaves their name out. But it's very cool, and everybody should read it. I'm going to link it. Basically, you can apply it to anything that you do, anything that you love. in this particular sense, it talks about writing. But anything you do, somebody can come in and blast it just enough when you're first getting started that you will believe what they say. And it will cripple you for a very long time. I had a guy try to do this with Leafdom. I got on Reddit. I think my wife got on Reddit. We talked about Leafdom, posted a post about Leafdom, and this guy comes on, and he's just like, this sounds terrible, this sounds terrible, this sounds terrible, I'm not going to waste my time reading your book, your cover is trash, and he just systematically attacked every single thing about the book. And there was a small part of me that was crushed, that was devastated, and that was made weaker. But the thing that was different in this situation and in my situation is that I could tell myself at the time the guy had not read the book. He thought it was a stupid idea and he just blasted all of it. But he had not read the book. So all of his insults and all of his bullshit was just bullshit. The person that attacked Sarah and these other women, but they read the book first. So they had specifics they could give, ways they could attack that was very specific to them. Well, with my guy, I ended up getting on and just destroying him. I destroyed him. When I am writing something, I'm a whole lot more powerful than when I'm not. If I had met that guy face to face and had an argument with him face to face, I probably would have got shouted down. But when I'm writing and I can craft every single nuance of the sentence before I send it to you, it's not really fair. The lesson here is don't get into an argument with a writer. And Sarah makes that argument very, very keenly in the blog post that I'm gonna link. Basically, she explained the whole thing, and she didn't do it because she had to talk herself off this ledge. She did it because she had already been talked off this ledge, and she realized that this was predatory and that this was happening to a lot of other people and it could destroy a lot of people's careers. So she made the blog post in order to teach people to protect themselves from this sort of thing. Anyway, that was after she had written Seraphina's Lament. Honey and Wildfires, she was actually working on Honey and Wildfires when she first got on my radar. And she was talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And I was just kind of like commenting on things, and I was trying to get a dialogue started with this person because I thought she was interesting. And so she was talking about Honey and Wildfires and how it was weird, and it was something she didn't really have. It was just kind of like nebulous at the time, and it was starting to become something. It was starting to take form. And on one of the things I said, I would love to look at it and just see little pieces when you're ready to give them. And look at it and see what you're doing. Not necessarily to critique, but just to give you somebody to talk to that has read the little pieces that you're starting to put together. I said, sounds like a fascinating piece. I would love to look at anything you have. And she completely ignored me. She didn't know who I was. And I think that she thought I was looking for a review. She has a reviewing blog. She has a blog she just talks about all kinds of stuff with. And she has a reviewing blog. And I think at the time, she thought that I was trying to make friends with her so that I could get her to review my book. And that's just not how I operate. I really did want to look at Honey and Wildfires and see what was going on. I did not think she needed my help. I was just offering it. Well, she didn't take it. And she ended up coming out with a brilliant product. So many people love it. It is an important piece. Both of her books are important pieces, and they talk about a lot of things that a lot of writers and a lot of different places aren't talking about. Chronic pain is one of them. Seraphina's Lament has a goddess in the book that is disabled. And I think in the second book, they're in a wheelchair. Maybe in the first one. But at the very least in the second of the Seraphina Lament series, the Bloodland series, one of the goddesses is in a wheelchair. People have this misconception that a goddess in a wheelchair would just heal herself because she would think she was less because she's in a wheelchair. But that's not really how we need to look at disabled people. We don't need to look at disabled people as broken. And we don't need to look at disabled people as people that wish that they were not. I myself am mentally disabled. I've got PTSD. I've got DID, which I was just talking about. I've got the non-24-hour awake sleep disorder, and I'm bipolar. These things combine to make the man who sits here, and I wouldn't change those things, but they are disabilities and disorders. And I don't feel as though I need a cure. I'm completely satisfied in where I'm at. I don't consider myself less of a person because of my limitations. And I think that's what Seraphina Lament, one of the things it's talking about is this goddess is no less powerful because she's in a wheelchair. This goddess does not consider herself broken. This goddess does not, consider herself less of a goddess. This is just one of the challenges that this goddess deals with. Anyway, it opens up an entire conversation about things like chronic illness, and chronic pain. In the piece that I just read, The Druid, it talks a lot about her being clothed in a robe of pain. She's carrying a staff of thorns. Sarah is suffering from a disorder, a disease that puts her body in complete pain, and she's hurting all the time. All the time. Me and her had like a 2-hour-long conversation on and off through Messenger today, and the whole time we were having that conversation, she was in pain. and it never came up. She made a fantastic dinner today. I could tell you what it's called. I don't remember what it's called. Something beef. Anyway, she made this fantastic dinner. Blew the whole family away. And the whole time she was doing it, she was in pain. She's got to take care of her dog, her husband, her kids, her clients, her friends, her work, and read. And the whole time she's doing it, she's in pain. So, I want you to try to imagine that. Your body, imagine the worst pain you've ever been in. The worst pain that I've ever been in was I broke the knuckle on my hand, and the knuckle was actually found down here. My hand was really swollen, and I thought it was just swollen from a hit. And so I worked a 9-hour shift at Pizza Hut, and I was the only cook, dishwasher, guy cutting pizzas, guy boxing pizzas, and guy prepping for the next day. It was a Monday. It never should have been a thing, but we got slammed that Monday. And so I was making hundreds of pizzas and cleaning up after hundreds of people that had eaten there by myself with the broken hand. And by the time I got through, I knew there was something horribly wrong with my hand, and I couldn't move it. I couldn't breathe on it. It was just agony. That went away. I don't feel that anymore. But if you take that pain that I just described, apply that pain to my entire body, and then expect me to just laugh and joke and hang out and write stuff and be interesting and not be furious all the time and not be screaming at everybody all the time. Be a good father. Then you understand what people with chronic pain are dealing with. They have this thing in their life, and all they want to be doing is laying in the bed screaming because they're in so much pain. You can't live a life like that. You can't live a life like that. And so they have to be out and around us. And the whole time they're there, they're in horrid agony. Driving down the street, walking down the street, grocery shopping, everything. They're in absolute agony. Keep that in mind everywhere you go. Think about that everywhere you go, because it's so important to understand. I have a couple of friends that deal with chronic pain, and I'm very aware of it because I have a similar thing. I see hallucinations almost everywhere I go, all the time. And I have to live and walk and breathe in that. I have to pretend that the things that I see in this room right now, moving around, and that are behind me on this, I have to pretend that they're not there. It reminds me of chronic pain. Because I can't just be like, looking around all the time. I have to be a father. I have to make meatballs for dinner. I have to, So, that's one of the things in Serafina Lumet that is important about the book. The other thing is, she writes a lot of gay, lesbian, and trans characters. But it doesn't matter in their life. Like, that's not why they're there. She's not writing them because they're gay. They just also happen to be gay. So they'll be the hero, the heroine, the star of the book. And the fact that they're gay is just something that happens to be happening. And that's extremely important. Like, I'm straight. I have a wife, all this kind of stuff. I don't come on here and immediately tell you that. Because me being straight does not matter in this context. And being gay does not matter in all contexts. You're still a person. You're still expected to do things, and it shouldn't be your entire life. And if you look at it like that, because both of these books have characters like that. If you look at it like that, then you start to realize that the differences between a straight person and a gay person are so slight. They're so small. Because that is one small facet of their life, and everything else moving around is no different. So that's another thing we learned from Sarah's work, is that your sexual preference does not define your place in the world. It just happens to be an aspect of your life. Sarah teaches us that in both of her books. That's an important lesson to know. I have gay friends, and seriously, like, we'll be together for weeks, and it just never comes up. They know they don't have to hide it from me, and every now and then we'll talk about it, but it's not really that big a part of their life. If they're around somebody that accepts them, then the rest of their life goes on. I hope I'm saying this right. I hope I am expressing myself correctly in this matter, because I would hope not to be misquoted in saying things like their sexual preference doesn't matter. Of course it matters to them. It matters to me. My sexual preference matters to me. That's not what I'm saying. The fact is that you can be, they're not that and only that. I'm not straight and only straight. Anyway, we learned a lot of that from Sarah. So with these polarizing topics that she writes about, she gets like widely varying responses to her work. Most times she laughs about them. Somebody will come on and be like, gay people shouldn't be in book, stuff like this. But a lot of times she gets some really, really fantastic stuff. People have read their books and then gave their books to their parents. Their parents have read Sarah's books and understood their child's sexuality and understood how that child lives and stuff, and it has helped bring families together. Things she's doing are healing the world and pointing out its flaws at the same time. Anybody can scream about the things that they do like and they don't like. Very few people have answers. And when you read Sarah's books, you can see a shade of some of the answers, or at least a direction we should be looking and the way that we should be looking at it. So, that is Sarah Chorn. She is a great editor. She is a great writer, a great friend, but more important, she is important to the direction that the world is leaning. She's an important leader for acceptance, equality, and recognition. I want you to try to imagine. Just try to imagine for a minute. You're 15 years old and you've never walked. You've been in a wheelchair your entire life. And you see all of your friends going through puberty, being in sports, being everywhere, doing everything. And you feel trapped in a chair. And then you read Seraphina. And you see a goddess in a chair. Imagine how empowering that would be. Imagine the effect that would have on you if you've never walked and you've always thought it was just... Imagine reading about a goddess in a wheelchair, if a wheelchair is all you've ever known. And you'll truly understand why we read Sarah Chorn and why she should continue to work and do the things that she's doing. Because Sarah is looking at the world in a very unique way, in a way that nobody else can, and she's telling us what she sees. It's like she has different sorts of eyes, and she sees the world in a different way. You don't get that a lot. You don't get unique vision a lot. And when you do, you should take notice, and you should check it out. Anyway, when I get done with this, I'm gonna mix it all up, cut it all up, edit it all up, and I'm gonna send the video to Sarah. And make sure she's okay with everything that I've said. And she's gonna do a lot of crying when she watches this. Sarah's crying right now. It's fine, Sarah. Go ahead, cry, get it all out. Send me a message. I'll be waiting for your message. Anyway, check out Sarah Chorn. Look at the things she's doing. She's somebody you want to be paying attention to. Hey, I'm here to make a correction. This is my addition and correction and update shirt. Okay, so in this video, I used an example. Hold on. Jordan is scratching. In this video, I used an example of a 15-year-old that was stuck in a wheelchair, or trapped in a wheelchair. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Maya. Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So that's what I'm here doing. I'm doing better. The idea that a person with the inability to walk is stuck in their wheelchair is not how we should be looking at it. I talked to a friend of mine, Sarah. I talked to Sarah, she watched this, and she's very mindful, and she told me that the correct term is wheelchair user. A wheelchair gives the gift of mobility to somebody that does not usually have it, and so the stigma around being in a wheelchair is not what I'm trying to promote. I didn't take it out of the video because I was telling a story. And in that story, I believe that that character would feel as though they were stuck. However, I don't believe that most people in wheelchairs do. And even if they do, that's for them to say, that's not for me to say. So this is my correction. In the story of a 15-year-old that's watching all of his friends play sports and learn how to drive and all this kind of stuff, I believe that in the story that I mentioned, they would feel stuck. So I'm going to leave it in, because at that point I'm talking for my character. However, when I'm speaking for myself, I believe that when if you are not a wheelchair user, I believe that you should use the term wheelchair user and look at it more as a object used for mobility that gives a gift of mobility to somebody that wouldn't otherwise have it. I think that's our job as people who are not in wheelchairs, to look at that way and try to erase the stigma, because the stigma is dangerous. The idea that somebody is less because of the wheelchair is not at all, is exactly what Sarah's fighting in her book. So I'm leaving it in for characterization of the example of the story that I used to illustrate what Sarah's doing with her work. However, I would like for everybody to know that I do not play into that stigma in my regular life. I only did so in this story because I thought it was accurate for what that character was going through. I was speaking for that character, but now I'm speaking for myself. The correct term I will use from this day, because of Maya and because of Sarah, the correct term that I will use from this day is wheelchair user. And I do not look at them as a person stuck in that wheelchair. Okay. I think that's all I want to say. I think that it's important the reason that I'm making this and not just making the correction is because I want to promote the idea that you can do what you can and what you know until you know better. This is a in real time display of me doing that very thing, and I want to encourage everybody else to as well. If you find out that something that you're doing, something that you're saying, a term that you're using, or anything like that is offensive to a person, any person, for any reason, I would ask you, that person would ask you, the society that's growing up around us would ask you to do better as soon as you learn better. So I guess that's what this section of the video is about. Keep that in mind, and please go forward with that information. Thank you. Now it's time for the update. Now it's time for me to tell you more about the Gondik Iron Spine drama that's going on in this house. For those of you who don't know, I'll give you a brief. I wrote a piece. It's a book called The First Tree. And in the book, the slave boy gets away, finds himself at the feet of a monument, the tomb of his father. He starts talking to the monument. It's all in a book that's coming out. I think it's October 2022. Anyway, when I was telling my wife later, through the edits because it's already ready to go. But when I told my wife later about the edits, she saw how upset I was getting. I was crying while I was talking about it, could barely stand, could barely keep myself together. While I was talking about the scene at this tomb. And she got an idea. She got an idea about my past that set in motion a series of events in which we find ourselves now, which is wondering who my father really is. What's that boy talking to that monument? Me talking to the monument of my fallen father. In my autobiography, I call him Bramble. Through the last few videos, we've examined a lot of the information that I have about Bramble, or about my work and about my past and all that stuff. I'm getting a DNA done. I was spurred on to get this DNA test done by people from my past, people that know me, people that knew Bramble, friends of his. Things aren't adding up that I've lived with my entire life. Things aren't making sense. Well, what I found out was that Bramble is dead. He died in October. He died in October, and I released a book in October called Plight of Madness, and it's the third book in the Madness War series. And the Madness War series is all about fathers, trying to figure out what makes a good father, what makes a bad father, and examine fatherhood from every angle I can. And I created one fatherhood story after the next, and just set them in motion and saw where they went with the different personalities. And I was studying fathers. I decided to dedicate all of the books to a positive father figure that I had in my life. The first one is dedicated to Carl. He is in my series. He's called Mentor in my autobiography. Second one is dedicated to Bob. He's a therapist that I had. In the autobiography, he's referred to as Henry. Third one is dedicated to Bramble, and that came out in October, and it happens to be the same month that Bramble died. Well, I have a friend, a loved one, Tacy. I've talked about her before. Tacy is looking up everything she can find. And I asked her to find a death certificate, because we were searching for Bramble and we were unable to find an obituary for him. She couldn't find an obituary, and after searching every database she could get her hands on, she couldn't find a death certificate. She couldn't find a death certificate. She searched that state and every state that he could possibly have lived in from the information she was able to gather. No death certificate. I don't know what that means. No obituary, no death certificate. We found a couple of lines, telephones, some landlines, some mobiles that might be his, if he's still alive. I don't know what to think. I was told he was dead by my Uncle Wrath, but I can't find a death certificate on him. It just leads to more questions. Is he possibly still alive somewhere? Or is, during the time of COVID, has there been so many deaths that notifications like this are backlogged? I don't know. I don't think death certificates are backlogged, but we can't find one. So, all we can do is wait and reach out where we can. I don't want to call the number and ask for Bramble, end up getting his widow and ruining her day or week by me asking for a person that was taken from her by whatever took Bramble from the world. I don't want to be wrong, but I don't know how to make myself any more right. So, anyway, that's just another question, another weird thing happening. The other one is, Bramble has a brother. I'm going to call him Thistle. Thistle is fairly infamous. He's a historical figure. I don't want to get into who he is quite yet, but he wrote a book. The book is a diary. He's a writer. Thistle's a writer. Always wanted to be a writer. Anyway, he wrote a diary, and it was published. It's not complete, but if you're reading it, you can start to see certain patterns that are emerging from the things he's saying and the things he's doing. In one particular section, like I said, it's a diary, and it jumps considerably, like 2 weeks without an entry. And he says that the reason that he didn't write is that he couldn't. He was in bed all day, all week. He was too depressed to write. He was considering all of his failures, and it was just a dark time for him, so he couldn't write. Another time, he's walking through a city, and winter has lifted, and it's the beginning of summer. Spring is in the air. The winter has been a hard one for him, and he kind of loses it in his excitement. He starts yelling and screaming out in the middle of public about how happy he is and how excited he is and how great the coming weather it will be and is. And you can see that it's unreasonable euphoria brought on suddenly with very little provocation. With these two aspects, we're looking at a person who is bipolar. I think anybody who reads that book will diagnose its author as bipolar. I'm bipolar, and bipolar is genetic. Now, I have been told by my friend T, or that's what we call her in the autobiography. She's a nurse. She did a lot of work studying psychology. And she was quick to tell me that on very, very, very rare occasions, someone will develop bipolar that does not have it in their past. It's not genetic. They will develop it. That could have happened to me. But there is nobody on Char's side of the family, which is the man I'm told is my father. Nobody on his side of the family that's ever been bipolar. And there's nobody on my mother Rose's side of the family that's ever been bipolar. So either I'm genetically related to Thistle, and as such I'm bipolar, or I have developed it free of any other genetic disposition in my family lineage. I don't know. That's what I have for you. I have for you a bit of genetics and the lack of a death certificate. So that's your update on the Gondik Iron Spine situation. I'll let you know more as I get it. Right now, when it comes to this topic, I'm very hot and cold. Sometimes it's just a thing that's happening in the background, and sometimes I get so upset about it that I'll get locked up in myself. I'll just burst out crying, or I'll need to be alone, or I'll go to a dark place, or, you know, and then later, and I'm just not even thinking about it. It's hot and cold. I'm everywhere on this. I haven't been drinking as much as I was before, but I am still drinking. Makes the time go by. Kind of numbs everything. But I'm not using it as a tool to get by currently. Anyway, that's our episode for the day. Week, I guess, for the week. This will be coming out Friday. I'm gonna try to get it to the Druid as soon as I can to see what she thinks of it. I'm not gonna say the thing, do all the things, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much.